Yeah, it should be working now. Well, it is working now.
Good.
Cool. So, did you want me to go through? I've written 4 questions.
No, let's just be spontaneous.
Spontaneous. All right, I just have a rough guidelines, and there's one at the end. I just want to end with a piece of advice that you can give people watching this. So I'll just start off asking you about your story, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
All right, cool. Welcome, guys. This is Steve Light from Leading Light TV, and my special guest today is Geoff Thompson. And Geoff has got a really interesting story to tell. He's, he started off in Coventry in the UK, and he was a nightclub bouncer, and now he's written many screenplays. He's authored many books, and you're also a black belt in is it judo and karate as well?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to speak to you today about fear, anxiety, and boosting confidence, because I had personal issues with depression and anxiety and stuff, and I think you've got a very interesting take on things. You've been through a lot yourself, and did you want to start off talking a bit about your past? And
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody I know suffers with fear, with anxiety. There seems to be a line of fear, what they would call in the Mahabharata, the Sea of Nescience. There was a kind of this ocean of fear standing between us and our dreams. So the things we really want to do, things we really want to achieve, the people we really want to be, the lives we want to lead, are blocked by this often undefinable fear. It's the fear of moving forward. But then, of course, we think that's we're kind of surprised by that, but we shouldn't be really, because we're taught to be fearful every single day. If you watch the news 10 times a day, if you read the newspapers, if you listen to the radio, if you talk to your friends, people are teaching you to be afraid. They're teaching you to think in recessionary terms. They're thinking that you go put the news on in the morning. I can't watch it because even though I know this stuff, even though I teach it, it still makes me depressed if I watch it, because it's basically saying don't go outside, the sky's falling in. There's terrorists, there's no money, there's a recession. But actually, there's only the terrorism is in people's thinking, it's in their perceptions, and the recession is a recession in imagination, a recession in thinking. Obviously, we know economically there's a recession, but it's mostly a recession in thinking. It's a recession in perception, because money, as we know, it doesn't really exist other than as a perception, as a tool of exchange. And the tool of exchange is based on perception. Everything's based on perception. Politics is based on perception. So if the perception you're getting every single day from the newspapers and the news, which is basically the information that makes up our reality, if that's recessionary, then we think recessionary. So when I was younger, I was brought up with recessionary thinking. I was brought up with limited thinking. I was brought up with limited core beliefs. It wasn't a conspiracy. My parents weren't conspiring to make me think small. They just taught me what they knew. They taught me to survive in the world. My teachers prepared me to work in a factory. My teachers were not fulfilled. My teachers were fearful. The society as I knew it at the time was, broken into class systems, and we were all taught to be afraid of different classes and afraid of trying to go outside of our class. But actually, when you look at it from a spiritual stance, there is abundance. There is an abundance out there. And if we take abundance from the abundance, as it says in the Upanishads, there will still fucking be abundance, because there is abundance. There's only a lack in perception. So up until the age of 32, I still worked in factories, and I still worked in menial jobs because I was afraid to step outside of that. Well, probably till the age of about mid-20s, when I had a major depression. And this, what depression is like. It comes in like a black dog. It eats your food. It slaps your wife. It insults your children. It takes over your house for about 2 months, and then says, "My name's depression. See you again whenever I'm ready." It just used to sweep in and out of my life like a black dragon. And I used to feel under the dominion of this fear. Then after this one particularly bad depression, I just thought, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this feeling bullying me. So I decided to draw a pyramid on a piece of paper. And on each step of the pyramid, I wrote down one of the things I was afraid of. The very bottom, I was afraid of spiders, to the extent that it would stop me going to bed if there was a spider in the room. At the top end of the pyramid, the worst fear was the fear of violent confrontation.
Yeah.
So I started to confront my fears systematically, one by one. Sometimes I'd break the fears down into manageable parts. Sometimes I would just dive into the fear and flood myself with it. Other times I would go and talk to other people who would experience similar fears to get a cognitive belief that it was possible to overcome it.
Yeah.
And over a period of time, I gradually built myself up so that I got to the top of the pyramid. And my final fear was a fear of violent confrontation. Along the way, other things got added to the list. One of the things that got added to my list was my first wife. I realised I was afraid of her, but I was also afraid of my mum. I was afraid of my mum withdrawing love. I was afraid of my first wife withdrawing love. So I was, to be honest with you, I was pretty much afraid of everything. I was afraid of change. Everyone's afraid of change. If I was in a factory job and they brought a new guy, I was afraid that I might not get on with him. How's that going to change my life if I don't get on with him? My mind was, if you imagine your mind is the reins of a chariot, my mind was all over the place. The horses of the chariot. My mind was untrained. So climbing the pyramid of fears helped me to control my mind, to control my sensual body. I've written a book on this called Fear, the Friend of Exceptional People, and it's about the process. So I started to climb this pyramid and overcome these fears, and I built this up because I was actually going out and being a warrior. I built a healthy self-esteem. I was training in karate. And I decided to become a doorman to control my ultimate fear of violent confrontation. Of course, when I got on the door, I realised that I wasn't really afraid of spiders. I wasn't afraid of dentists. I wasn't afraid of karate competitions. I wasn't afraid of confrontation. I was afraid of the feelings associated with it. I wasn't afraid of death. I wasn't afraid of losing my wife. I wasn't afraid of having no money. I was afraid of the feelings that were associated with that. So I was able to, with an act of concision, I was able to break down my fears to, boil them right down to the essence. I was afraid of the feelings. Nobody's afraid of anything but the feelings. So there's only one job, and that's for me to learn to manage the feelings, learn to understand the feelings, learn to channel the feelings, learn to kind of desensitize myself to the feelings, learn to understand them. So I started to study psychology. I started to study the adrenals, the endocrine system. I started to understand what adrenaline was. I recognized that I'd got a sensitive sympathetic nervous system, but with diaphragmatic breathing and with kind of core control, like what I call controlling the eye of the storm. By building an eye wall, I could control those feelings. The feelings were there, but I could manage them. The only way I could learn to manage them was to put myself in the middle of those feelings and practice. So when I went on the nightclub door, it was like the ninth circle of Dante's Inferno. It was one of the roughest places in Coventry, told as the most violent city in Europe. I realised that everybody was afraid. Even these warriors were afraid. They just learned to manage their fear. So I started to practice overcoming my fears. Anything that came into my life, I would confront it. I would embrace it. I would intercourse with it. I would kiss the leper. That's what I did. Then when I started to read about my spiritual heroes, people like, Muhammad and Jesus Christ and Arjuna and Lao Tzu, these were people, Rumi, these were people that dove into their fear. Rumi actually wrote a poem about going out into the night and hunting down your fears. He said, be a night traveler, hunt your fears, go and embrace them. The Mexican shamans used to go out and look for trauma because they knew that there was essence in trauma. So they would actually hunt trauma down to find, which is what I've spent my life doing. I've spent my life looking outside and looking inside to find and embrace the things that I'm afraid of. Because fear really doesn't exist. It's just a perception. It's a bodily reaction to a perceived threat. And if we can change our perception, we can change the nature of it. So this is about finding logos or finding purpose for what we do. So if we have a very strong purpose, the fear is diminished. And if we can completely confront the fear, then the fear will have no existence, it will dissipate. This is the one of the miracles of Francis of Assisi. He confided in God that he was afraid of lepers. He had a debilitating fear of lepers. And God said to him, I want you to go out and find a leper. I want you to embrace the leper. I want you to kiss the leper on the cracked, bleeding lips. And Francis was a proper man. You know, he didn't like just say, oh, that's what God says, that's what I'll do. He kicked off. He said, that's the last time I confide in you. I tell you my weakest point, I tell you my greatest fear, and you ask me to go and confront it. Of course, he had a faith in God, so he realised it was for his benefit. And so the next day he went out, he found a leper, he embraced the leper, he kissed the leper on the bleeding lips, and he wrapped the leper in a coat, and he started to carry him to a refuge. But within a few steps, he felt the leper getting lighter and lighter. And when he unravelled the coat, the leper had gone. He disappeared. This is one of the accredited miracles of Francis, and the message from God was, when we embrace our fears, they cannot exist. Fear is a perception. So, obviously, even Einstein said it's an illusion, but it's a convincing illusion. We have to go face to face with it. So we have to learn to turn into it. Maybe as long as we're moving towards it, you know, sometimes we can dive into it, sometimes we can approach it slowly, but we have to embrace it. We have to get sovereignty over the sympathetic nervous system, or over the sensitive body, the sensual body. We have to get control over the mind. The sensual body and the mind join together and create personalities. And from those personalities, we create monsters of perception. And then we run away from the monsters that we've created. So what it's saying is that we are the reality makers, but most of the time we are creating from a place of perceived fear. So we continually create monsters that chase us, and we say, isn't the world dangerous? So when I was working from the negative perception, is when I was 12, I was sexually abused by my first martial arts teacher. So implicitly, this guy was saying to me, he put software on the hard drive saying nobody can be trusted, not even people you love, especially people you love. So that was what he put. That was the program he put on my mind. So I went out into the world thinking nobody can be trusted. So I built an armory, I built muscles, I put war paint on with all my tattoos. You know, I got rid of all the prettiness from my face. I cauliflowered my ears, I broke my nose. I built this body, and I built martial arts skills that I could kill people with. I can kill in 20 different languages. My killing techniques go through customs. But I learned to do that because I was implicitly told the world was dangerous. And from that negative perception, I created nightclubs, pubs. I created fights at christenings. I created fights in weddings. I couldn't go out without getting into a fight. I was in hundreds of fights. I was in thousands of violent situations. If you fucked with me, I would find out where you lived and turn up at your house, because that was where I was. That was my fear. That was my insecurity. You know, so I created that from a very powerful but negative imagination. When I realised it was me that was doing it, because I said to my wife, "Is the world a violent place? Everywhere I go, there's violence." And she said, "Geoff, there's a common denominator. You. Everywhere you go, there's violence." It's because it's what I was creating. I was the reality maker. So I started to, when I realised it was me creating it from this anxiety, from this stress, from this fear, I started to create better things. I started to train my mind to see beauty and love. I forgave the people that abused me over a period of time. I stopped dealing in hate and anger. I got rid of all the violent books. I got rid of all the violent thoughts. I stopped feeding that black dog. And I started to read about love and spirituality and alignment and motivation and creativity. And I changed my whole life from being a negative, violent person to being this person that's just looking to serve and looking for love and looking to give love. It's just about your perception. But again, we are programmed to be fearful. We are programmed to fear the world. It's programmed into us and underlined every single day. Some people think it's conspiratorial. Some people think it's just lowest common denominator or an unhappy accident. It doesn't really matter. We've been programmed to feel fear. That's what when you look at the Bhagavad Gita, which is the battle of Kurukshetra, which is Krishna taking Arjuna, the prince of the world, into the battle to win his kingdom back from his corrupt cousins. The battle of Kurukshetra, the Bhagavad Gita, is about us winning our kingdom back. It's about us crossing the sea of nescience. So when Arjuna is at the battle, there's tens of thousands of soldiers there, and they all represent pieces of negative conditioning. When Krishna is saying this conditioning does not exist other than in a perception, but to dissolve it, we have to sometimes go to war with it. We have to go into it. We have to immerse ourselves. And even Arjuna at the battle fell and was crippled with fear because he believed this Maya, he believed this illusion, he believed this conditioning. And Krishna realigned him back to his purpose and said, you've got a dharma to follow. You've got to go and win your kingdom back. People are watching. People need to see that you're not afraid because fear doesn't exist. So all of the spiritual books are telling us the same. Our kingdom is as close as our neck back. And Krishna says to him, stepping over the sea of nescience is as easy as stepping over a hoof print of a calf in the mud if you've got alignment to God, if you've got alignment to love or purpose or logos. So it's all about saying the kingdom's there, our potential is there. It says at the beginning of the Quran, wealth was within reach of Muhammad, but it was beyond his grasp. He couldn't reach it because you just hadn't got a big enough, an expanded enough consciousness. So he started to expand his consciousness, and he expanded his courage, and he continually turned into his fear. So the fear is more human conditioning than it is the human condition, and we can change conditioning, but it takes a titan, it takes an effort, and it takes a purpose. Like your purpose at the moment, I know your purpose is to help people overcome anxiety because you've suffered from it. So you're working from a place of love. This is not about you. This is about you wanting to serve people. That's why we're doing this interview today. So you want to serve people. So you're working from love. And if you're working from love, you can overcome every obstacle. So everybody's got it, but everyone's got it, and they're unconsciously feeding themselves with the very thing they don't want. But the energy that's out there that we're looking for, the energy that they call God, or the energy that they call the universal consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, the energy that we're looking for is looking for us. But we have to turn towards it. We have to face these fears. We have to prove to ourselves that the fears are not real. We have to continually go face to face with them, and we have to search for love. Not looking for the person that's afraid. Look for the person. Where is love? Where's love in us? What is the part of us? Even if you just ask the question, who is the part of me that is love? It's not a sickly sweet, kind of aphorism. It's actually a connection to a higher dimension. It's a connection to a higher frequency. It's a frequency where all the other stuff below it dissolves. Other things below it can't exist. It's a very powerful place to be. But it's easier to stand on a nightclub door and have a fight with 10 people than it is to turn in and search for that, because we're all terrified.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about that. Would you say that in hindsight, you faced all your fears, and I did a similar thing. I went on courses with 300 people. I did all sorts of things. I went, interviewed Ruby Wax. I just did all the things I was shit scared of.
Yeah.
Do you think that you have to do that, or can you go directly within and improve yourself that way? Because there's so many different ways of doing it. People say you have to face your fears, and other people say you can just look within. What would you say?
The fears. Are you still there, Steve?
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you for a second there. You're back.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at it in terms of consciousness, when you go out and when you go in, it's the same. Because what the stuff that's on the outside is really just projection from the stuff that's on the inside.
Yeah, good point.
So when you go out, you're going within, and when you're going within, you're going without. So I do both. From my experiences, from my life, I have and this is what a friend of mine pointed out to me. He said to me, because I said, you can go in and you can dissolve this just from the inside. That's like going to the projector. I'm not trying to change the picture by going to the screen, change the picture by going to the projector. And he said, but that's not been true for you. You have gone out in facial theatre. I said, yeah, you're right. That's very true. So, but between us, we realised that going out and going into the same anyway. So you could just sit there and you could meditate and you could dissolve these things. But sometimes, for me anyway, in my own life, sometimes, I mean, I have dissolved major conflicts just by going in. But a lot of the times I've also had to go out. I've had to go and stand in front of people. I've had to go and stand and do certain things. But it's always an internal jihad. But I think the smaller battle is when we look at the manifestations. The bigger battle is when we go to the source of the manifestations, when we go to the core of it, when we go into the projector. So I still believe that we can do it purely by going inwards. You'll know if it's worked, because if you go inwards, you'll find that you can turn hate and anger and fear into love. And when you think about people or circumstances, they disappear. But from my own experiences, I kind of hit it from every angle, a bit in, a bit out. Again, realizing that, when you go out, if you go to Japan, to train in karate because you're afraid, and you go to Japan, what do you end up doing? You end up getting battered and sitting in a room crying and having to go into yourself to find out where that comes from. So you could travel the world, but you still end up going in. Everything eventually forces you in. So if you can go in immediately, go straight to the source, then I think that's a really good way of doing it. But as long as you don't kid yourself, as long as you don't pretend that you've overcome the world, but really you've run away from the world. So we're the reality maker. We can change reality, but we change it from internally, not from externally. And that's what Muhammad calls the big jihad, the very big jihad, because it's much more difficult to have a look at the source of things than it is to go out and kind of go into a karate fight or, stand on a nightclub door. The stuff I do now is much more difficult than it was to stand on a nightclub door. Because I have to look at who I am. I have to look at who I'm not. And the parts of me that are not me, I've got to dissolve. I've got to kill them. I've got to kill my parents. I've got to kill my friends. I've got to kill all the influences that misinformed me. This is what Krishna's saying to Arjuna. Because Arjuna says, I don't want to go into battle. My father figures are there. My teachers are there. My uncles are there. My cousins are there. My brothers are there. People are going to die. And he said, their karma's already unfolded. They don't exist. What he was saying was they are just, there's just part of your conditioning. They're just scripts. You have to dissolve the script. So we have to go to war even with our family, but not in the sense that we hurt them, but in the sense that we dissolve. If their influence says the world is small and they've given you a hazelnut size consciousness, then you have to dissolve that and expand it and make your core beliefs bigger. This is what we call expanding the second self. So it's very difficult to, I've seen people who have committed suicide rather than question their family or question their friends or question their conditioning, I've seen people in depression, in psychosis, and in death because they would not question the authority around them. But we have to go inside and do that. That's why, people think that's self-development. People scoff at it, but they scoff at it because they're afraid of it or because they don't understand it. It's the most powerful thing you'll ever do. When there was a great thing in the Quran where all the soldiers are coming back to the village from war, and some of them are dismembered, some of them are dying and will die, some of them do die, have died, and most of them are very badly injured, but they're quite proud of their wounds because they're warriors. And Muhammad's clapping and saying, congratulations on the small jihad. And the soldiers are very angry. What do you mean, small jihad? We're dying. Some of us have died. Some of us are dismembered. This is a real battle. They said, yeah, but the big jihad is inside. Once you realize that you're the reality creator, you're creating the reality, you like for me, I don't create fights on nightclub doors anymore. I don't create fights at fucking Christians. I don't create fights in my car, because I've got no hate and anger in me. I've got no enemies in me.
Yeah.
So, but that takes a massive amount of courage to say, it's me. I'm responsible for my reality, and I can change that. And we can, because I've done it. I'm not just talking theoretically. I mean, I've done it. I've gone from being a fearful young guy with a young family, afraid of the world, to being a nightclub doorman, in life and death situations. 4 of my friends were murdered when I was working the doors, to letting go of the violent tools and becoming a man of peace, a shaman. I've changed that. I work with love. I work with natural energies, and love is the fucking red hot. People, when you talk about working with love, people think, oh, he's hugging trees, but you're working with the most powerful element in the known universe. It's a frequency, and to get to that frequency, you have to destroy everything below it, and it takes tremendous courage. What you're doing takes tremendous courage. What you're asking people to do is take tremendous courage. But the beauty is, you're not asking them to change their brothers and their sisters and their friends and their family and their wife. You're asking them just to change themselves, to be the change they want to see in the world. That's the exciting thing. It's just us we've got to change. I'm going to change. I'm going to worry about fat politicians and corrupt bankers. They've got their own karma. I've just got to worry about the fat politician in me. I've got to worry about the corrupt banker in me. I've got to worry about the fundamentalist in me. I know they're there. I have no doubt about that. I'm having to convert them. I'm having to go to war with them. I'm having to dissolve them. So it's a very exciting time because we haven't got to go anywhere to do it. It's here. It's as close as your neck now.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me, because over the past 10 years, I've been facing all my fears, and I've got to a point now where I'm just happy being myself, and I don't have to be a different person.
Yeah.
I always thought that I had to change and be a really outgoing person, and then I was afraid of being too outgoing, and I was thinking to myself, what if I get too cocky, and what if all this stuff happens? And I had a view in my mind that confidence was cockiness, and that stopped me from... That had a barrier between myself and the person I thought that I should be. But I feel exactly the same as a person as I did 10 years ago, but I just feel happy in my own skin.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah,
Just
it is.
accepting yourself as you are, and noticing all the stuff that's going on is mainly conditioning, and you're taking on other people's ideas. Parents, my mum was quite anxious and had quite a view of the world where it was quite scary outside, and stuff could happen, be careful all the time, all that kind of stuff, and it rubs off on you, especially at such a young age. You take it all in like a sponge, don't you?
That you become your mum, you become your dad, you are your conditioning. When between the ages of 1 and 5, when our kind of internal parent is developed, our super ego, and then after that, when that's confirmed and reaffirmed, we end up, these people are actually, they're not influencing us, Steve. They're creating us. They're actually putting the programs on the hard drive. When we realize later on that perhaps we've been created imperfectly by the conditioning, and that there is a perfection behind that, we can change the conditioning. We can expand the conditioning until in the end, there's just a spontaneous being. So there's not really the conditioning anymore. We just expand the authentic self. We expand the internal parent. We expand the core beliefs, the conditioning, until we just become a spontaneous expression of love, or whatever it is you want to call it. I would say it's a spontaneous expression of love. That's within everybody's capability, and that's where the real power is. But to go, it's much easier to point the finger and blame the world than it is to go in and change your conditioning and think and look at it and think, well, these people that helped create me, that put the programs on my mind body, most of them just did their best. Most of them did their best, but we can improve on that. But to improve on that, we often have to go against them, because our mum perhaps doesn't want us to sack our job and travel around the world, because that's what we want to do. That's our dharma. And perhaps our friends don't like it, that will become published authors. Or perhaps the friends we work with on the door don't want to see us talking about love because they like the doorman. You know, maybe the guys in the factory are angry that you think you can leave the factory and work for yourself and become a full-time martial arts instructor, or maybe they don't like the fact that you're fucking on a talk show talking to Hollywood, you know, with Hollywood superstars. We have to take all that into consideration because that's their conditioning. It's not our conditioning, but their conditioning can affect us because when we move away and we grow in consciousness, we will be attacked. We'll be attacked because we're killing them. We're killing them as influences. We're not really, you know. If you have a spontaneous act of love, like for instance, a guy's coming through a toll road in America. It's Christmas Eve. It's raining, and he noticed a girl behind the counter. He looks very depressed. He looks very sad. So in an impulsive act, he gives her a $10 tip. He doesn't think about it. It's just an intuitive act. And the girl is so taken back by this gift of love that she breaks into spontaneous tears. And he said he just felt this connection, this moment of bliss. There was no longer him and her, you know, him as the driver and her as the worker, him in the car, her in the toll road. There was just this connection. He said he felt such bliss that he wanted to spend the rest of his life just looking for that bliss. In that moment of bliss, the ego died. So love kills the ego. It doesn't really kill it. It just transforms it. It just dissolves conditioning. Conditioning will say, well, fuck it. She's got a job. If she's not happy, that's not my fault. She gets paid. If she's not making the rent, that's not my fault. But that's not what love says. Love says, just give, just keep giving because there's an abundance. You know, so when we find moments like that, you know, love is death of the ego. It's death of conditioning. But it's normally just a spontaneous thing. We do it, we wander off, and then we get back on with our life. We stumble on the truth, as Churchill said, and then we wander away as though nothing's happened. So we've got to try and find more moments of bliss like that, where we connect, where we can kill the ego by transforming killing the ego is entirely the wrong word because everything just transforms. You know, when you put sugar into water, you don't kill sugar. You know, you just join sugar with the water, and every part of the water becomes sweet. So the idea is that there is just this oneness when you connect to it. I'm trying to find more expressions of that, more ways of doing that, because there's opportunities every single day to do that. But we have to overcome our own conditioning, and our own conditioning is saying there's a recession, there's violence, there's terrorism, there's greedy bankers, there's people sitting in a room trying to make life difficult for me. They're not. And if they are, that's their issue, not yours. You can sit above, you can rise above the world. You can be in the world, but not of it. But that's about spending your time cultivating yourself. That's when people come on my sovereignty course, or when they come on, my black belt course, whatever course I'm doing. That's what they're coming for. They're coming to cultivate themselves. And all I do is I give them tools to help them connect to their own source, specific shamanic tools to help them connect to their own source so that they don't have to go through me. I don't want to be their guru. I'm not a guru for them. I just connect them to their own source. I deliver the Bhagavad Gita. I deliver a spiritual discourse that helps them connect to God so they can experience God, whatever that is to them, in their own way. It's a fingerprint. And then they'll feel that expansion. They'll feel that bliss. And then all of the stuff they're looking for, you know, the money and the business and the material thing, the consumeristic things, they're an exponential effect. They're a byproduct. They come anywhere. They're just the trinkets. But people, as Rumi said, people are busy looking for the saddle. Don't look for the saddle. Look for the horse. And then if you look for the horse, you'll get the saddle as well, and the stirrups and the reins. You'll get the whole lot. So it's just trying to find ways of connecting to love. And to connect to love, we have to... the word war is not the right word, but we have to embrace our conditioning, and we have to thank our conditioning, and we have to say, but it's time to move on and expand our conditioning. And the reason that's difficult is because my wife is part of my conditioning. My children are part of my conditioning. My workmates are part of my conditioning. You know, my friends are part of my conditioning. Society is part of my conditioning. So I'm having to risk losing all that. Generally, if you're around people that really love you, they grow with you. My children have grown with me. My wife has grown with me, but not everybody's grown with me.
Yeah.
Not everybody's taken the ride. Some of them have chosen not to come, and that's their dharma, but it's not mine. So it's difficult, but it's exciting. It's easy to ignore, but because there's so many opportunities to point the blame at somebody else. It's and it's not difficult. Like I said, if you want to know who you are, or if you want to know who you're not specifically, just look at your online presence, look at your Facebook page, look at how you treat people, look at look at your shadows, look at how hideous people can be. That's bad, because that's not them, that's the shadow. When you meet people face to face, you see who they really are. You see the love, you see the connection, you see the soul. We're all connected. So first of all, find out who you're not. You're not those material things. You're not that aggressive person. You're not that insecure person. That's just conditioning. You're not the sensual body. You're not the mind body. You're not the mind. We're not the mind. My mind is not me. My mind is the software. I love my mind. I love my body. I love my sensual body, but they're not me. There's a big me at the back, a looker, as they call it in Hinduism. There's a seeker or an observer. My authentic self, my soul, my Atman, that's at the back. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And the egoic body and the mind body and the sensual body and the physical body, they're all tools for that. And I know that's a hierarchy, but this is one of the things I was saying to my friend. I've got a great friend in America that I speak to. We have great conversations about our search. And I just say, when this lady's name's Larry, I say, when we connect to love, there's no fucking such thing as a hierarchy. There's no authentic self. There's no egoic body. There's no mind body. There's no sensual body. There's no physical body. There is just oneness. There's just a spontaneous being. So the hierarchy is just there to help you to understand. If you're run by the sensual body, you're not living in a great place. Because your horses aren't trained. If you're living from the mind body and you've got negative or limiting core beliefs, you're not living in a great place. That's the tail wagging the dog. We've got to be living from our authentic self. And when we start turning towards the authentic self, this energy, this vast energy that is looking for us, finds an expression through us. It wants to work for us. It wants to express itself to us. We need to be a powerful, righteous conduit. And the word righteous, again, I know it has a biblical ring, but righteous just means right path. It means moral and ethical and virtuous. It needs a virtuous path to manifest through. So it's an exciting time to be alive. But don't look at the news every day and read the papers every day and talk to the same people every day and expect to get different results.
Yeah.
If we want innovation, we need diversion. We haven't got diversion, we haven't got innovation. We need to divert from the path that we're on every day and start finding our information somewhere else. Get the Bhagavad Gita, get the Holy Quran, get the Torah, get the Guru Granth Sahib, get Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching. Have a look get information from different places. They're only really telling you to go into yourself. You don't even need books. But the idea of books is just to realign you and say, go back into self. The idea of a talk like this is just to remind you to go back into yourself. It's all in you. That's what I learned when I was violent, Steve. I was battering myself. Every single thing I did came back to me. When I was negative about people, it came back to me. When I was mean, when I was unkind, it came back to me. I carried it like a fucking bag of stones on my back. It makes sense to be kind, but it takes courage to be kind.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to speak to you about the whole martial arts thing, because I felt so insecure and, I hated myself when I was younger. I always had an urge to fight with people. I had a few small fights and all that, but it was, I started finding myself getting punched for no reason. Like I was going was probably only about 14 going to like one of those junior nightclub things. And when I walked out, I just got punched in the head. And I just felt such a victim. And it's like, why do I deserve this? But before then, I always had this urge that I wanted to prove myself because I felt so insecure and insignificant. I wanted to, I couldn't express it through words because I couldn't articulate how I was feeling that well. And I just wanted to, let it out in that way. Can you relate to that with when you learned martial arts, you wanted to like kind of be somebody and talk through your fists and, like you said, have that armor?
Yeah. I mean, it's, violence is a method of communication. It's just not a very effective method. And even well-intentioned violence bounces back on itself. But for me, I couldn't have gone any other path. The martial arts enabled me to find sovereignty over the physical and sensual body. If we haven't got control of the physical and the sensual body and the mind body, if we haven't got control of those, we're not even really noticed at a higher realm. We're not even noticed by the kind of, what Freud called the angelic realm. We're not even noticed by that because this energy doesn't really have room to express itself righteously through us. So I went through that phase of doing martial arts to get sovereignty over myself. And when I got to a high level of martial arts, I realized that the physical was just the small jihad. And to do the big jihad, I needed to go into the Budo side of it. I needed to be able to, start working with virtue, start working with morals and ethics. And the same as everybody else, struggling with that because it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. It's difficult to be continually righteous. It's difficult to live a moral life. Everybody wants to, get something for nothing. But when you realize that that's where the mastery is, you aim towards it. But I think that warrior phase of being physical is I wouldn't say it's normal. It's probably a normal part of human development because of our kind of cultural conditioning over the years. We feel the need to be able to defend ourselves in the world. But at a high level, you learn to defend yourself with your thinking. When the three kings came from the Orient to the birth of Christ, they were shamans. They were the three magi, they called them maguses. They were rich merchants. They understood the money shape. They were not afraid of the money shape. They were able to travel from the Orient journey, protect their thinking. That's what the Bible talks about. They protected themselves on their journey with their thinking. So at the highest level, we realize we're the reality makers. So we don't need to protect ourselves with our fists. But learning to protect yourself with your fists is one of the rungs on the ladder. It's one of the stages you go through to get into that place. And there is a place where not that, as this says in the Matrix, not that the bullets, you'll be able to block bullets, but that eventually you just won't create situations where there's violence. Yeah. And if you do create them, you'll learn to dissolve them from the source where they came from you. So it all comes back to us. It's about what's in us.
Yeah. That reminds you of like martial arts like Aikido. Have you ever looked into that? Because that's basically the way I see it, the art of non-violence. It's like dissolving confrontation without having to use violence, isn't it?
Well, if you look at Ushiba, if you just people are watching this and put Ushiba into Google, Ushiba was the founder of Aikido. He trained, his spiritual prophet, his spiritual teacher was Anusabura Debuchi. And if you look him up on Google, he had 3 major epiphanies in his life. He had moments of clarity. It's really, really wonderful to read. And he talks about the warrior working from love. He's one of the few martial artists in history that was not afraid to talk about love. I mean, if you listen to Rick Young or Danny DeSanto, they talk a lot about the highest level of martial arts is love. And this is what Ushiba talked about. So it wasn't that his art enabled him to defend himself better. It was that his art just enabled him to not create violence in his life. He said if anybody challenged him, it would be like taking on the whole universe because he was connected to his source. So I love Aikido. I did Aikido for quite a few years when I was younger. Interestingly, my first Aikido instructor sexually abused me. So it didn't leave a good mark But that one experience was pivotal in my life. It created a catalyst. It put a lot of the fear in me. And this was just this one individual. Obviously, it's nothing to do with Aikido. Aikido is a wonderful art. It's one of my favorites. But this particular individual set me on a journey of searching. If that hadn't have happened to me, I wouldn't be here talking to you now. I just wouldn't. I'm grateful for everything that's happened to me. Everything that's happened to me is good.
Yeah, that might be quite a difficult thing for people to take who have been abused, because, you know, it's so traumatic. I can only imagine how difficult it would be. What would you say to people who would be in that situation? Because it's quite a touchy subject.
Yeah, it's about power, though. We're talking about power, aren't we? And we want power. You know, if someone sexually abused me when I was 12, and he's still in my mind when I'm 20, and still hurting me when I'm 30, and still taunting me when I'm 40, that man's got control of me. He actually possesses me. Yeah, forgiveness is not about letting people off. I understand the universal law of karma. I know that I can't let people off. That's not within my power. All I can do is disentangle myself from the situation. And the most powerful way to do that is to forgive. To forgive means to give over. So I give that experience, I give that act over to the universe, over to God, and I disentangle myself from it. So if a grudge or hate or anger, if that's a possession, which it is, it literally possesses us, then when we forgive somebody, we exorcise them like demons from our body and from our mind. This guy that sexually abused me, Steve, even when I was an adult and got my own family, he was inside my mind, physically abusing me and sexually abusing me still. I used to sexually self-harm, I used to physically self-harm, and it was all because of the trauma of that situation. So when I forgave him, it was the greatest act of autonomy. It enabled me to go back into my past and change history. I changed the past when I forgave him. So it's the most powerful thing I could do. It's comfortable to hold on to hate. It's comfortable to hold on to trauma and fear. It's comfortable to become a victim of circumstance. That's what I was like. For me, I'm looking at it and thinking, okay, I can't change what happened, but I can change what I do with that. What can I do with this? I've got a massive reservoir of rage, a massive reservoir of shame, a massive reservoir of guilt. I can transmute that energy and create something wonderful with it. And that's what I've done. I've created a whole reality from what that guy gave me. What he gave me, I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody, but I've turned that lead into pure gold. So it's not trying to figure out why it happened. It's trying to figure out what I can do with it. So we can do something with that. There's a very famous footballer. I don't need to name him, but he became quite an angry, kind of anxious guy. My friend was working with him, and he said he got real issues with his father. He said his father would when him and his brother were kids, he was a fanatic about football. His father would make him sit in front of the television and put Match of the Day on. And then when Match of the Day came on, he would turn him so his back was to the screen and he wouldn't let him watch. And he did that through his childhood, and it left this lad very damaged. So my friend, said, okay, we know that's happened, but what has he given you? He says, he's given me nothing. He said, but look at your life, what has he given you? He said, as an adult, what did you do? He said, I played professional football. He said, and where did you end up playing? He said, I ended up playing professional football on Match of the Day. So he said, so your father stopped you watching Match of the Day when you was a kid, but he couldn't stop you from playing Match of the Day as an adult. And what happened when you retired from your career? He said, well, I became a commentator. He said, and where did you commentate? He said, on Match of the Day. So your father couldn't stop you from actually physically being on Match of the Day. So although what your father did was hideous, and we can't understand why he did it, we can see what's come from that, what you've created from that. So I don't like what happened to me, but I do like what I did with it. I took that and I created abundantly in the world from it because I can. So when I forgave that guy, he went off and ended up hanging himself by the neck in London. I forgave him. When we forgive people, it's like pouring scalding water on their head. But when we forgive people, it's an act of exorcism. We exorcise them from our body. We're carrying hate. It's like drinking poison and waiting for our enemy to fall dead. If we're carrying hate and anger and anxiety and fear, that's obviously it's caustic on the body. It's damaging because of the cortisol as it affects the smooth internal muscles. It's caustic. It damages the bladder. It damages the lungs. It damages the intestines. It damages the lining of the arteries. Cortisol kills brain cells. So when we hold anger in our body, we think it's powerful to be angry. It's not. It's the weakest thing we can do. Angry people are weak. Angry people, Steve, are possessed. I know. I spent most of my adult life like that. When I forgave this person, I found love. I forgive everybody that does anything to me. I forgive them. It doesn't mean I let them off. When the Pope forgave the guy that tried to shoot him, he went to his prison cell and forgave him. He didn't try and get him released from prison. That guy had to go to prison. He had to serve his judicial sentence. He had to pay his debt to, his karmic debt. So when we forgive people, we do not let them off. People have the wrong idea of what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is about getting your autonomy back, about becoming powerful, about exercising the people that are possessing you. They possess you. If you feel anger, you're possessed. You're just like a puppet. Someone's just running you. So if you think about somebody and you get that pilot of rage or that pilot of anger, they've possessed you. We cannot let that happen. So the way we get rid of them is we forgive them. And at the top end, you find compassion and love for them. I know that's difficult to do, but we're talking about power, aren't we? We're not talking about doing easy things. We're talking about doing difficult things. Easy things are taking a baseball bat round and smashing someone's face in. That's easy, but what does it do to you? It just adds to your karmic debt. You just become you're in the same frequency as the person that's done to you. You've got to go to that frequency. We don't get rid of black by adding black. If we're violent, we're the same as the other people who are violent. So we've got to fire a higher frequency. Of course, you've got to have your day in court. Of course, people should serve long prison sentences, and they will, obviously, they will meet their own karma as well. I've seen it with 1 million people. But for us, it's about us releasing ourselves from their possession. We can't let them possess us.
So with the whole anger thing, we all have different views about different emotions, and I never expressed anger, and I didn't think it was acceptable. And if people were angry, I got scared and all that kind of stuff. And I've heard other people say that anger is not a natural emotion, but then in science, people say it is natural. What would you say to that? Because
anger is better than depression. Anger can get you out of a hole, can't it? What is anger? It's just energy. Anger, of course, it's natural. It's natural. It's just the expression of it. It's not whether it's natural or not. It's just what it does to us. Anger is caustic. Yeah. If we hold anger in our body, there is no denying that it's caustic, because anger triggers the adrenals. When the adrenals are triggered, we've got adrenaline race around the body, but there's no behavioral release for it. There's no fight or flight. Cortisol is released. Cortisol regulates the blood pressure during fight or flight. But if it's not behaviorally used, if there's no fight or flight, then cortisol races around the body looking for a battle. It scratches the arteries. The fatty acids that are released in fight or flight get caught in the arteries, so it creates angina. It batters the smooth internal muscles like the heart, the lungs, the intestines, the bladder, as I was just saying. It runs up to the brain and kills neurotransmitters. Anger's, no matter what anybody says, anger that's kept in the body is caustic. It kills you. It's actually poison. So anger that is not transmuted into something that is not behaviorally used is a caustic. There's no argument with that. So, and for me, anger is, you're just in a low frequency. So things like anger, envy, jealousy, rage, fear, they're all the same. They're all fear. But when you take the labels off, it's just energy. So as long as you can find a behavioral exit for that. So if I've got anger, I could take that anger and write an article and sell it for £500 to a magazine. So I've turned anger into gold, literally. Same as jealousy. If I've got jealousy and I keep it in my body, that's fear. Jealousy is fear. Anger is fear. Envy is fear. All of these things are just expressions of fear. Fear is the release of adrenaline. And the release of adrenaline, if it's not behaviorally used, is a massive caustic. It destroys the body. It invites cancer into the body. Because when you get anger and you get adrenaline, the immune system closes down because it thinks there's a fight or flight. It closes down temporarily. So if you're in and out of anger all day, your immune system is not there to protect you against these negative diseases. Anger is also something, anger is almost like a cell of cancer because it's something that's refusing to die. You've got a grudge that's refusing to die. That's what cancer cells do. It's a cell that doesn't die and it collects other cells and it becomes a tumor. So when we've got anger in us, it's something that we're not letting go of. And if we don't let go of it, it will collect other cells of anger, other cells of envy, other cells of jealousy. It's not good body maintenance to harbour anger. If anger rises up in you, obviously we're human, so if it rises up in you, it's learning to find an outlet for it, a healthy outlet. So if I'm angry at you, I could go and do a 5-mile run, and I could actually find a surrogate release for that anger, for that energy. Or I could say to you, like I spoke to someone the other day that upset me, and he made me very angry, this person. And I said to him, why would you do that to me and my family when you know I love you? Why would you do that? So I was able to transmute my anger into love because I love this person. I do love this person. He's been an old friend of mine for many years. And what he did, I just said, why would you do that when I love you? So I can convert it into pure love. It's easy to say, Steve, it's about doing it. But if we hold anger and people pride themselves, I will fucking be angry. I will have my anger. Well, have it if you want it, but it's poison. You being angry at somebody is like drinking poison and waiting for him to drop dead. So we've got to try and find the root of the anger, and we've got to release the anger. Maybe we need to process it. Maybe we need to talk to somebody. Maybe we need to go into a field and shout to release it. If it's there, you've got to find a way out for it. But if you're really smart, I'm an alchemist. So when I get those kind of emotions, and sometimes, Steve, sometimes they beat me. Sometimes I'll hit a door because they just fucking beat me. But I'll take that anger and I'll create something beautiful with it. I had a situation about a year ago with some people, and I managed to write a play based on all those emotions. So I've created, I've got about £8,000 because I converted that anger. I could have gone round and been physical, but that's below my game. I won't do that. That's not the world I'm in. That's the small jihad. I could have done that. I didn't. I wrote a play about it. I spoke to them. I expressed my love for them and my disappointment, but I wrote a play about it. I conveyed the emotions in the play, and I converted that into gold. So all of these things are natural because they're energy, but they're unnatural if they stay in the body because they're not meant to stay in the body. They are only released as an energy for survival. And if we don't have a fight or flight, there's no fight or flight, then they call this, in psychology, they call this GAS, the general adaptation syndrome. What they say is that you get adrenaline, but there's no fight or flight. Where does that adrenaline go? Your body goes into sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. The threat goes away because there's not a threat. It's just something that's made you angry. The body comes back into homeostasis. It comes back to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our natural balance. But that adrenaline that was released is still there. So the next incident that comes up, someone cuts us up in the car, the adrenaline goes again, but it goes quicker this time because the adrenals, the sympathetic nervous system has become sensitive. So they call this a sensitive sympathetic nervous system. Each time your adrenaline is released, and each time you get a release of adrenaline, but there's no behavioral release, there's no fight or flight, the next time it will trigger quicker and be more disproportionate. So at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, or at the end of the year, you've had all this adrenaline, but not found any behavioral release for it. And somebody cuts you up in the car, and you take a baseball bat out and cave his head in. A massively disproportionate response to a small situation. Or you hurt the people you love. You rear up at your wife because, or you boot the cat because of something tiny. That's because the body, the sympathetic nervous system has become sensitive. So you get a sensitive sympathetic nervous system. So we've got to find a behavioral release for this energy every single day if it comes up in us. But don't release it in the same way as it came. Someone makes you angry and you're violent back to them, then you're just going to create more karma or create more anger. So we need to solve situations But we need to do it through communication. And if we need to spill a bit of physical to get rid of the energy, then hit a punch bag or go through a run. Or again, at the highest level of alchemy, it's about converting that into, I convert it into a massive workload. And then obviously if you're doing yoga, your body, your sympathetic nervous system it's very hard to trigger your sympathetic nervous system when you're doing a lot of yoga. Diaphragmatic breathing.
Yeah.
Literally you can turn the sympathetic nervous system off by doing diaphragmatic breathing. You can come back to, so you can operate these things manually once you understand it. I did a book called Stress Buster, which covers all this if people want to look at it. It's called Stress Buster, but it's all about the adrenals. It's all about displacement. It's all about what stress does to the body if we don't act on it. So anger is natural, but if it's held, it's not good. It becomes unnatural.
So that could be the same for anxiety. If you're, for example, with social anxiety, you imagine a social situation to be not the way you want it to go. You go there and you'd be embarrassed or humiliated, and you get the fight or flight response come up in your body. And how would you explain to people how to deal with that? Because a lot of people will run away from the situation or hide and not really disperse the energy.
Well, it's a longer conversation.
Yeah.
But again, if they get a copy of Fear, the Friend of Exceptional People, and the stress book, we go into it in detail. But the main thing is about changing your perception to the situations you go into. You've got to find a purpose for it. You've got to realize that. For me, I recognize that most of the things I were afraid of did not, the fear in it didn't actually exist. It was just my perception. So you've got to find a stronger purpose. For me, I remember getting so fed up with being depressed. I bought loads of books about it. They never really give me any truth. They never told me the truth. So I just remember saying, when I find out the truth, I'm going to write about it and tell people the truth. That's why I do the talks. That's why I do the writing. So my purpose was to help people and show people that this isn't a natural way to live. This is just, you've got a false perception of a situation.
Yeah.
It's because you're caught too much in the mind or you're caught too much in the sensual body. So it's about changing your perception. And like I said, it's about going towards it and recognizing that until you step towards it, until you step into it, there's no freedom. You have no freedom because you're imprisoned by your own fear. My brother ended up shrinking his whole world till he couldn't leave the kitchen of his flat, and he lived in a flat in a shitty part of Coventry, and he couldn't even leave the kitchen. He was so afraid. So we don't address fear. Fear shrinks us. We end up being imprisoned by it. So we have to continually move towards the things that we're afraid of and recognize they don't really exist. We need to lean into those sharp edges, test them, but just do it a little bit at a time and recognize that you're not on your own. Everybody feels those feelings. It's just some people learn to deal with it. So I'd say get one of the books, have a read of it. If there's anybody out there who hasn't got any money, email me. I'll send them a book of it. I'll send them a copy free. I'll send them a download. And start doing the exercises. There's loads of stuff in there that will help people to confront these feelings. There are specific exercises. The feelings don't necessarily go away. We just learn to manage them. We learn to recognize that this feeling that we're afraid of is a massive reservoir of energy. And from that energy, we can create anything we want in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. It's like when we all have our own problems, we think that we're the only person who has that. And
it's everybody.
Everyone has, I like the phrase perception is projection, because when you're in a bad place, you think you're the only person, and the way you're feeling is your view of the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, just to be aware that you're not alone and everyone else has, you can't see from the outside. There's so many different people walking around. You don't know what's going on. You just see a guy walking along in a suit, but you really don't know. It's just...
Working the Doors taught me that. Working the Doors, working with these legends, and you realise they're all afraid. They're all afraid. You don't get rid of it. You just learn to manage it. You learn to channel it. You change your perception of what fear is. It's a primal response to a threat. but most of the threats that we have are not real threats. So we can using cognitive therapy, we can change our perception. Now we can look at that and say, where is the threat? Is there really a threat? It's mostly just story, and the story is just something that's running away in our mind because we haven't got control of our mind body. It's like we like the software on your computer running your computer, and without your help, we've got to recognize that the mind body is under our control. The sensual body is under our control, and we have to fight for that sovereignty. We have to fight for that sovereignty by being authoritative with ourselves in our own life. And there's tools out there to develop that. There's loads of stuff out there. The moment you start looking for it, it will start looking for you. Books will turn up, interviews will turn up. The most amazing things will happen once you start turning towards it. But you have to turn towards it. When you turn towards it, it'll race towards you. So there are ways past it. There are ways, like I said, it's all about perception. But perception is multifaceted. Perception is connected to every sense, to every memory, to every program in us. Perception is everything, but perception can be changed. If we connect to our own source through meditation, through TM, transcendental meditation, through yoga, through prayer, if we realign to our source, all of our perceptions are changed in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
But we have to have the courage to do that.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say to anyone who's not really spiritual? Because you're a normal guy from Coventry, and the kind of guys you used to hang around with, I'm assuming a lot of them wouldn't be into any kind of spiritual stuff at all. What?
Because they don't understand it.
Yeah,
you say God, and people think, that you're a tree hugger, but they don't know what God is. God is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. It's what we are in God now. Denying God is like denying water. And I'm not talking about a man in the sky with kind eyes. I'm talking about an omnipotent energy. We are in the middle of this energy. We are an expression of this energy. We are this energy ourselves. And people get upset by religion, but they don't know what religion is. Religion means that you have an infinite supply of energy, but to access the energy, you have to align to it. So in Old Greek, religion means religare, to reconnect, man to man, man to his source. So we're just saying you've got a bank here, and there's an infinite amount of money in it, and you can connect to it. Religion is you connecting to your own source. Everything you want. If you go through transcendental meditation, it's not religious. It's just a meditation that connects you to your source. Your conscious net will expand, and every answer you want, every solution you're looking for, every piece of information that you need is in that place. You have access to it. So religion is you aligned into that. What we're doing now is religion, Steve. We're realigning. People don't know what religion is. They don't read. You look at the Bibles. They're just books by prophets and philosophers, by learned people. And they're subtextual. It's not just about the stories. It's about what's below the stories. And it's not just about the stories. It's about the cadence of the stories. It's about when we speak the stories subvocally. It's about the effect that vibration has on our body. How that vibration, that religious vibration, dissolves old scripts. It helps you to align. So religion means to realign. Don't be afraid by a word. The Bibles, they just mean the word. The Torah, it means the word. God means purpose. Logos. God is translated as logos. It just means purpose. So I say to you, align to purpose. You say, oh, that makes perfect sense. That's where the power is. If I say align to God, all sorts of conditioning comes in and thinks, oh, fucking hell, he's talking about God. I'm talking about logos. But there isn't really a word that's going to satisfy everybody. So I use the word God. I need to be courageous in my use of that word. I know what it means to me. And if it affects people, they need to look at why they're affected by a word. They're affected by conditioning. They're affected by what someone's told them, what they've learned. But why don't you pick the books up and find out for yourself, and be amazed at the fact that, the Srimad Bhagavatam is, the Bhagavad Gita, the Mahabharata, the Hindu texts, they've come from the Vedas. They're 5,000 years old. There's an unbroken lineage of information. It's just information. It's knowledge. And knowledge and information that realigns us dissolves old scripts. It expands the second self. That's what Yudhisthira says. He's the king of the world in the Mahabharata. How do you become successful? You expand the second self. That's what you do when you go out and face your fears. When you face your fears and dissolve them, you realign back to your true purpose. So I've spent a long time looking at these books because I'm not interested in what people think about these books. I'm interested in what I can take from them myself. And what I realized when I read the Quran, I was writing the Quran as I wrote it. Everyone that reads the Quran writes the Quran. Everyone that reads the Bible writes the Bible. Everybody that reads the Gita writes the Gita. We are creating the reality ourselves. I don't understand it all myself fully, only that alignment is a simple thing. It gets convoluted by words and by dogma. But we need to, as they say, run our dogma over with our karma. And karma, what does karma mean? Karma just means action. So we need to take action. If we've got a false idea of religion, why not look into religion? If we've got a false idea of the Quran, why not buy a nice copy and read it? Yeah. Why not go sit with? I had a 30-minute chat with a Sikh warrior the other day. I loved it. I just loved it. I loved his take on the, their guru is Guru Nanak or the Guru Granth Sahib. I love the history of what they do. I love the fact that they want to serve the community. So I just, I'm talking to them and I'm learning a lot just from being in this culture. We expand by being in the company of people from different cultures if we're open. We don't need to be threatened by, because it's perception again,
Yeah.
So being spiritual it's like of course people say you're religious. Yeah, of course I'm religious. I align to God every single day. I just align to my source. That's what it means. So we need to educate ourselves out of the ignorance of people have these real false ideas of what certain things are. But why not find out for yourself? Why not take a look for yourself and be excited about the fact that, this 5,000-year-old information is yours, free.
Yeah.
It's incredible. People would fight to the death over a £10 note on the floor, but they won't pick up, a free copy of the Bhagavad Gita, which could transform their life. There's one line in the Gita that transformed my life. One line transformed my life. The self is the self's only enemy. The self is the self's only friend. We don't need to work on anybody else, Steve. We just need to work on ourselves. So I'm excited by that.
Well, they're like the original self-help books, if you like.
They absolutely, yeah. That's personal development. Yeah, they are.
Yeah. And every time you said God, I have a reaction because I wasn't religious, and every time I used to think about God, you would have the picture of the guy with the grey beard, because that's what you thought God was when you're growing up and all that kind of stuff. And then when I think of God, I think of people being evangelical and all that kind of stuff, and you have all those associations, but it goes back to a fear thing again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you don't understand it, just face it and look at it. You're not going to be afraid any longer. It's just,
well, if I say the word God and it jars you, I've already instructed you, haven't I?
What do you mean?
If I say the word God and you're jarred by that word, I've instructed you. I've shown you something in you that you need to look at. Because if you can be jarred by a word, then you can be controlled by a word. And you don't need to be controlled by a word, especially a word so empowering. It's just that people have false ideas of what the word means. It doesn't, what it means to you does not what it means to me. I don't know what it is. I've no idea what it is. I'm completely ignorant to what it is. I only know that I feel it and that I've experienced it and that it expresses itself through me. I am a conduit for it, but I have fucking no idea what it is. No idea at all. I only know that I read the Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. It took 2 weeks off work to read it.
Wow.
And and it's one of the most beautiful texts I've ever read. And it said, here's your problems. Here's the solution. It's a book of problems. And the solution is the same every single time. Connect to God. Connect to God. You've got this problem. It's a terrible problem. It's a really bad problem. It's couldn't be worse. Here's the solution: connect to God. 18,000 verses that are saying to you, if you have issues, connect to your source, realign. And the Bhagavatam comes from the Puranas, which is 400,000 verses. I don't think you could actually buy the collection that's separated into different Vedas.
Yeah.
But that you don't need to, because they're just saying the same thing. Enough with the books. That's what when Rumi meets his idol Shams throws his books in the water. Said, no more books. Do it. It's about time to do it. You've got to do it now. The books are good because they remind us, but they just remind us to do it. You open the Bibles, they just say, this is about you. This is about you changing you. This is about you realigning. This is about you no longer being afraid of words. Don't be afraid of the word God. Don't be offended by the word Jesus Christ. You wouldn't have been offended if you'd met him. You'd have been fucking in awe of this person that was saying what he saw. Same as what Muhammad, you would have loved Muhammad. Read the Quran, read Muhammad's life story. He was an amazing man. He was a real man, and he was the same as all of us. He got confused. He would say to God, please show me things as they are. These blink stuff. I want to see things as they are. I was massively inspired by Muhammad. Read Lao Tzu, tiny little book, the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah, I've read that. It's just amazing.
It's just beautiful. And it's simple. It's really simple. So if somebody says a word and you feel a pilot of judgment or anger, you've been instructed. Have a look at that. Trace that. Why do I feel like that? I'm going to have a look into that.
Yeah.
People are offended by money all the time, Steve.
Yeah.
People are affronted by anybody that earns money. So if you're affronted by money, if you're affronted by about people earning money, have a look at why you're affronted. Why can you be so easily controlled? Look at the internet and put what is money into the internet, and you realise that money is just perception. It's an exchange of energy, and the worth of that. The worth of the exchange is determined by perception. Perception obviously is determined by previous delivery of product. So if someone has a high perception of you, then that exchange becomes more valuable. But the only way they can have a high perception of you is if you've got a high perception of you. So it comes back to us. We change our perception of ourselves. How do we change our perception of ourselves? By aligning to our source and recognizing that everything we want is already there. It's within our reach, even if it's beyond our grasp. It's there. So the things we're affronted by, the things we're offended by, we just need to, people tell me a million things about themselves when they're offended by the word God or when they're offended by money. People have an idea that money is evil. Money is God. Money is energy. If God is omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent, and God is money, there is not a manifestation in the material world that is not God, because it all comes from the same block. So we can. It's like having a block of gold and making a million pieces of jewelry from it and scatter them around the world. And someone says, well, this piece of jewelry is evil. This piece of jewelry is good. This piece of jewelry is valuable. This piece of jewelry is taxed. It all comes from the same block. It all comes from the same place. So everything comes from there. So we can't understand God as omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent, and then say some things are evil and some things are good. They all come from the same place. It's just about what we do with stuff that creates a meaning or an intention for them. Something Rumi said. He said beyond good and bad, there is a field. I'll meet you there. I love that. The idea that we've got to go beyond those perceptions, because that's conditioning. And then we've got to use all of this energy. Take the labels off all of it. Money is energy. People say, that they're not materialists. So you're a materialist. Everyone's a materialist. If you're sitting at a desk, you're a materialist. Well, you're a consumerist. Well, we're breathing the air. The air is alive. We're all consumerists. The key is that we've got to use this energy and create from it. If we hold on to the energy and put it in a biscuit tin and hide it under the bed, it becomes caustic. As long as the energy is moving, as long as you're a good caretaker of the energy is not caustic. But it's all God anyway. It all comes from the same place. Everything traces itself back to nothingness. Everything's created from nothingness. Even the pizza you order from the takeaway comes from nothingness. The ingredients come from the earth, and the earth is, everything is created from exactly the same energy. And we've got access to that energy, all of it.
It's interesting what you're saying about when I was reacted to the word God, because we've got so many mental associations of different words, and the way I see it now is that when I have a reaction to something, I know that is not me. That's kind of like background noise, if you like. It's things coming up in the past, in the subconscious mind or wherever, and it's really empowering just being aware of that, isn't it? Just knowing that those thoughts are not you, and you don't have to react to them. You can just let them, notice that they're there. And
it's what Eckhart Tolle says, isn't it lovely to know that you're not your mind. The mind is your tool. I know this computer, the software is not the computer. The software works for the computer. If the software is outdated, we change the software. So we're not our mind. We're not our sensual body. We don't have to be those things. We have to be determined by those. And we, and if we've got things that create a private light of emotion, then we can look at them. We need to ask, why do I feel that? I'll have a look at that. I'm going to look into that. And I'm no different. We're all the same. Everybody's, everyone's getting it. I'm on this path. I'm struggling myself. I have days when it fucking batters me. I have days when I'm on my knees with it. But, I'm on the path. I've chosen that path. I'm not saying I'm perfect, and but I am congruent. I am congruent. And when the lights are off at night, I know exactly who I am. I've no doubt about who I am. I just need to be who I am more often. Congruence isn't my problem. Consistency, because we fall down. But when I fall down, I just try and pick things up.
Yeah, you kind of forget when you're having bad days, and we will have times where life takes over and we've got a lot of stress in us, and it's okay to be like that, because I always thought that I had to get to a state of happiness all the time, and life is full of ups and downs, and it's just about just being happy with the way it is.
But it's spice of the stew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So just to finish things off, where can people get in touch with you if they want to ask any questions or anything?
My website is geoffthompson.com. There's hundreds of free articles on there. There's loads of hours and hours of free podcasts on there. We've got a lot of free material on there. Just go and help yourself. And if you like the articles, by all means, put them on your sites, pass them on to other people. If you like the podcasts, take them and let other people see them. We want to plant seeds everywhere. So you would do me a service if you spread that stuff everywhere. If you like something, give it to somebody else, let them read it. So we've got a lot of stuff on there. There's some of my films on there that you can watch for free as well. So everything goes through geoffthompson.com. You can also connect to me through geoffthompson.com. Emails come directly to my house. My number's there. The number comes directly to my house. People want me, I'm here.
Thank you, Geoff. That's really kind of you. So just to finish off on a positive note, did you want to impart one last piece of wisdom and sum up everything you've been saying? And
just this verse from the Gita: lift the self by the self, never let the self droop down. The self is the self's only enemy. The self is the self's only friend. If you want to change the world, you need to be the change. This is from Gandhi. Be the change in the world that you want to see. And just work on developing you. You don't have to worry about your wife or your brother or your sister or your friends or society. Concentrate on you. You change you, it will have an exponential effect on everything. And just bring love to what you do. If you just bring this, what Krishna says, if you bring a handful of rice and it comes with love, if you bring it in a rag and it's all you've got and it comes with love, it will feed the whole universe. Love connects to everything. So just find that place of love in your work, in your relationships. There is no fucking shortage of kindness. We can do. There's opportunities every single day to invest in the divine economy, and every good thing you put out there will return to you, just the same as every bad thing will eventually come back home and knock on your door. That's what Frankenstein is about. The Frankenstein story is about the fact that we create our own demons, and then we try and disinherit them and try and disown them. They just want to come back and be acknowledged. Don't, if they come back into your life, embrace them, own them, accept responsibility for them, and then spend your life not creating monsters. Just create angels of intention, create, lights of intention. You can do that. It's the opportunity is there every single day to serve somebody from love. Little tiny up, and it needs to be, there's, like I said, you give $10 or £5 or a pound to somebody with love. You've connected to everything. You've fed everybody.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time. So, but just develop yourself. Don't worry. It's a bag of frogs out there. Don't worry about trying to fix all that. Just come back to the self, fix the self, align the self.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Geoff, for your time. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, man.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Cool. Thank you.
When can we use that, Steve? Because I'll get Lewis to put it out to our list if it's ready for the weekend. I'll just get it. We've got about 10,000 people that are on our list, so we'll connect them to it, and they'll come straight to your site. So hopefully you'll pick up a few people off that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll do that.
It was a good interview.
Yeah, it really was. I'll get it edited in the next couple of days.
All right. Well, just fire me an email over when you're ready, and a link, a little introduction or something. Just a few words. Literally a paragraph, and I'll get Lewis to send that straight out.
Yeah. Okay, mate.
All right, Bab. See you later, Bab.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.